no powders, no potions.
Hey, Mike.
What's up, Coach? How you doing, brother?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. So you're Albuquerque right now, of course,
Yes, sir.
and that is your man cave.
Yeah, a little home dojo.
Yeah, brother. Looks great. I've been, of course, following you on social media and just looking at the work that you're putting in, still keeping at a very high level.
Yes, sir. Trying, just I've actually been really inspired and finding a lot of new creativity in a new space in this, the middle of this pandemic.
I bet. How has training changed from what it was to what it is?
Well, here in New Mexico, all of the gyms are still closed. We're past 2 months on this now. Hopefully, next week the governor will allow gyms probably to reopen in small groups and small settings. But I really focused. I was fortunate in a lot of ways that a lot of the fighters I trained had just finished their bouts. Like Jones had just fought against Reyes, so his camp was done maybe 3 weeks before the quarantine started. And a lot of the younger fighters I trained didn't have any bouts scheduled, so I've just been able to take this time without a specific opponent in mind, without a specific camp or deadline, just to have fun and be creative and focus on some things that, self-improvement, not just like a camp and a strategy goal.
Sure. And that's rare that you get time to do that as busy as you usually are.
Absolutely. And same for the fighters, right? They're usually a camp, a couple weeks off, right back into a camp. So you're always preparing for a specific opponent, a specific skill set. And it's nice to just have this time to play with things and be creative and work on some new styles or modes.
Sure. What's interesting is during those times, there's always this buzz in the air, right? There's always a deadline. There's always a deadline looming, and there's always like more to do, right? And there's an enhanced level of stress for everyone, for you, of course, for the athlete. And the quarantine has allowed everyone to kind of switch into neutral a little bit. I think in our sport anyway, from an anxiety level. And like you said, more of the martial arts preparation is embraced instead of the professional fighting side of it, which I think are two completely different constructs.
Absolutely. And it's just been good for a bonding. You're not in a crazy packed gym with so much going on, so many distractions, so many eyes on you. I've been working out here with just a fighter at a time, and doing my best to keep the fighters safe, our families safe, respect all of the rules and regs. So it definitely brings just a different atmosphere, though, without all these eyes, without the pressure, and kind of takes it back down to remind us all why we started playing this crazy game.
Yeah. And what's funny is this is where we started, kind of old school 15 years ago. It was all in the garages and
Right.
and just a couple dudes, 2-3 dudes at a time here and there. Maybe you get like an open mat on a Saturday or Sunday and everybody meets up, right? You got 8 guys, they're rolling.
Absolutely. I always tell these young guys they're spoiled to have sparring with so many partners in their same weight classes. Like when I linked up with Greg and Wink, I was sparring Mike Van Arsdale and Keith Jardine and Rashad Evans and Joey Villasenor, like to get a middleweight. And I was fighting at 145. So to get a middleweight was like, oh, I got somebody close to my size.
Sure. Which is insane, right? And what year was that? So you're going back to early 2000s,
Yeah, 2003. I was with Wink and Greg. I would say 03 to 06 was kind of like the last of the before things really blew up, at least for our gym,
Yeah. Well, that coincides because The Ultimate Fighter came out in 2005, I think fall of 2005, right? And I was at Team Quest before that came out. And I remember, bang, 4 pay-per-views. And I had Lieben and Quarry in the gym with me. Lieben was a madman, right? He was the superstar. So we kind of saw it from there's Chris with dirty fingernails and the red hair, God love him, to bang, like women waiting outside the gym. What the hell's going on?
And it was the same with Diego Sanchez, fighting at local King of the Cages here to all of a sudden he's on Spike TV every night and And I remember helping him prepare for the finale against Kenny, and it definitely scaled up real quick from there.
You know, it's fun to talk to guys like you who've got some depth in the game, you know, and there's lots of great coaches out there, regardless of when they started. But you got in at a very similar time to myself, kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, when it really started to grow. I was affiliated with Team Henzo Gracie here on the East Coast in the late 90s and early 2000s, coming out of the college wrestling background, right? So that was kind of my inclusion. And it was, I mean, 2 to 4 pay-per-views a year. We're going to Suncoast Video to buy the VHS tapes, right, to see what happened in Pancrase 3 years ago. And that's I think that's maybe the golden age in my mind of MMA, just like Schwarzenegger in the 70s was the golden age of bodybuilding, let's say. None is better. I don't want to get into that, but you kind of saw it. So give me a little bit through your eyes of kind of the ride between then and now.
Yeah, you know, Albuquerque has always been a fight town, right? So I grew up I started boxing when I was 6. Wrestling is big here. MMA was big early on. There was just always fights in the community. Everybody was a fighter here. Everybody was a boxer. Everybody's uncle was a trainer. And it's just ingrained and embedded in our culture here. So I boxed all through high school. And when I was in college, I met a great trainer, Heinz Smith. He was a Dutch kickboxer, trained at the Boss Gym with the Overeem brothers. And he whooped my ass so bad that I knew that I was like, oh, you're onto something here. Teach me some of this Dutch kickboxing. And so I started training with him. And I quickly got better than everybody that was in that gym. And maybe my head started to get big. You know, I'm 20, 21, thinking I'm a badass. So he said, I'm going to take you to where I spar, and that's Mike Winklejohn's. And I got my ass kicked so bad that I was like, okay, this MMA thing, this is what I need to learn to be tough. Yep. But you're right, Mike. And I was always a fan of MMA growing up, you know, just like you, you know, going and getting the VHS tapes and seeing what happened where. Loved it. And traveling, you know, we have a lot of Native American reservations and tribes all around Albuquerque. Yeah. So there was always a fight at some tribal casino somewhere or down in Juarez, Mexico. And we just pack in a car and go and see our buddy scrap. Carlos did, and Diego Sanchez and Joey Villasenor. All these guys were like the homegrown guys. So it was just really cool to be a part of that and see, you know, from one year they're doing that, the next year we're traveling to Mandalay Bay to go see a UFC bout. It was just insane to be a very small part of that.
Yeah, and you know, you're dropping some names, man. Joey Villasenor, was he Strikeforce champion?
Yep. I fought Pride and Strikeforce. Joey never went to UFC. He fought in Elite XC, but you know, and I remember, and I'm sure Quest was the same way. It's like, what's going to be bigger? Is the Asian market going to be bigger? Should we send our guys to Pride? Is it going to be UFC? Is it going to be one of these startups like Strikeforce? Is it going to be King of the Cage that pops? And so we, you know, back then Greg was very strategic about where he would have the guys fighting. So, you know, it was interesting to see who's kind of courses from where.
Yeah, got a little unstable.
Gotcha.
And
yep, I can hear you, Mike.
Hello.
Sorry.
All right, there we go. So I switched off Wi-Fi and went straight Ethernet. Yeah, man, I remember those times. I remember when, you know, Sengoku was going on, and that was, you know, shooting up a lot of money. Guys were getting paid well. I remember Ryan Schultz went out there, you know, 32 grand cash to, you know, and with another fight 4 weeks later for another 32, just like, you know, US dollars. And it was like, because that was like IFL kind of phase. So what was that, you know, 08. And it was like, does he stay in the IFL and make like, you know, 15 plus 5 plus 5 plus 2 for the monthly? And, you know, so yeah, I remember, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know, the UFC now obviously is the powerhouse, but it wasn't always like that.
Yep.
was like that. And there was a lot of guys that would want to stay more active, and they would just be on the regional scene fighting every other month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, it's
interesting
crazy.
times. Sure.
For sure, man. And where have you traveled? I know you've been around the world. I typically see you around the world, but give me some spots that you've been to, maybe a little more obscure.
Ooh, I've been in some remote spots in Brazil, that's for sure. You know, Rio is obviously the place everybody wants to go, but I've been in like Fortaleza and Belo Horizonte and remote areas of Manaus, you know, all along the Amazon and the interior of Brazil and Brasilia. Yeah, so I got a lot of love for Brazil, all over Europe, all over Europe. And Mike, you know, I think that's one of the greatest things about the sport is, you know, I'm just a kid from New Mexico. I never thought I was going to be able to see the world.
Yeah.
And we always joke, like, we're just doing the same stuff as we were doing when we were kids. Like, oh, Saturday night, let's go watch our friends get in a fist fight. This time maybe in Prague or Poland or England.
Yeah. Now, how do you get the time away to coach as much and travel as much? I mean, you're all over the place. You're a family man. You have another profession that you also work alongside of this profession. Busy, right? So how do you kind of juggle all that?
You know, there's been times that I haven't juggled it well, right? That things have been out of balance. There was times I was probably on the road 40 weeks a year for different UFC bouts, and I realized that I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't putting out a quality product to the fighters, to my family, to my other profession. And I really had to kind of reevaluate and balance it out. But you know, coaches like us, Mike, we're givers, right? You want to help out everybody you can. You want to be there for them. You want to go into battle with them. It's very difficult to take a step back and say, I can't commit to this. I can't train you for this camp. It goes against everything that's in my nature. But at the end of the day, I was realizing that, you know, sometimes it was my family that was suffering because I wasn't here and wasn't giving. So it's a constant reevaluation. It really is. This past year, I might have traveled 8 times in 2019. 2020, you know, it's just, I'm really focused on Jones and Condit and Pico and helping them out with their careers and helping amateur fighters here and there and other pros in the gym where I can. But I realized that I can only give so much. Kind of taking a step back, scaled it down.
Yeah, and that's the best way, I would say, for what that's worth, because now they're getting your true essence. And it's hard when you care so much, because if you care about one, you care about 100 equally, right? And you're going to give 100% of your effort into each one of them. But unfortunately, number 3, number 7, number 37 won't quite get enough, and that will start to break you down, right? And you're right, we're givers, right? That's why we do what we do. It's to be on the journey, helping someone in the way that we can, right? But you make a great point about your family. So you're giving so much, but then your family is giving you away to them, right? Because they're all bought into your dream, your vision, supporting you. And you know, it's nice to see that you're really, you know, focused on the balance side of it. Now, I don't believe in like the whole, you know, work-life balance. I think it's all the same thing, right? Your work is your life is your work. Like your family is it's all of that at the same time. So to make sure each is getting the appropriate attention necessary, right? Instead of just going so far, which we can all do, especially when we're a little younger. You know, you get so kind of ego driven, not in a bad way, but in a positive, motivational, like thrusting forward kind of way. Just like the fighters are in that mind frame right now in their craft, their skill set. We as coaches, same thing. And I think it's good, you know, for me to kind of hard charge through my mid-late 20s into my early mid-30s in that. But then I scaled back also from 6 full-time clients to 4 full-time to 2 to 1 to kind of age out in a way, retire out certain aspects to unlock new areas of life. So that's kind of,
Absolutely.
very, very, synergistic, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like I'm more creative right now. I feel like my skill from a technical aspect is at an all-time high. And I feel like the presence and the energy I'm able to bring is what it should be for this sport. Sometimes when I was just so grinded out and burned out and beat up, I wasn't always coming with my best form. And, it's hard to kind of assess that at times too. Like because I was like you, Mike, my mid-20s through my mid-30s, it was like, this is my opportunity to be a coach. You finding that you're having success living your dream. But it's good to step back and reassess and like, okay, for this next chapter of my career, what do I need to do differently? What are the lessons I learned in kind of this first chapter? How do I get better? And what efforts do I really need to put into becoming the best coach I can be, the best leader I could be, the best pad guy I could be, the best teammate I could be. Yeah, it's just a constant evolution.
Now, you've been in the game a long time and you work with some of the world's greatest athletes. And I want to speak now to the professional side of coaching. I've tried to be a little more vocal to bring attention to the needs and the justified rewards that coaches deserve. And when you hear an athlete say that they're not paid enough, I nod my head and I agree. Yeah, the athletes aren't paid enough. Some are well paid, but likely not enough. And then anytime an athlete says that, I think about their four coaches. Each one of those coaches is staring at the athlete like, you're telling me, motherfucker, because the athlete looks at the promoter with disdain. The coaches don't look at the athlete with disdain, but they have the same argument. So if the athlete is upset at their small purse, the coaches, on the other hand, usually don't split a single digit percentage of what the athlete earns. Now, I bring this up because you're one of the more revered coaches, one of the more professional coaches, and you work with guys like Jon Jones, guys like Carlos Condit, guys like Tim Kennedy, Brian Stan back in the days. You work with a group of professionals who do take care of their coaches appropriately. Dare I say, and this is not your words but mine, not nearly to the level that you're worth. What you agree to exchange consideration, that's fine, but a great coach is worth vastly more than they're usually paid, single digit percentage, on average. Now, you and I both have good friends in the industry, coaches that, you see them once, twice, 10 times a year, and it's all just great energy and love. But you also know that these coaches are struggling financially, though being some of the greatest at what they do, literally the greatest in the world on that level, and struggling. Like sweating the per diem from the athletes, sweating the meal tickets, sweating how they're going to pay for their luggage. I remember a coach freaking out because he got hit with luggage charges he didn't expect. And then it was like, high level coach. So what are your thoughts kind of on this? Just some kind of a general chat on this topic.
Man, it's difficult. And it's one of the real, like you said, it's a professional business part of coaching. Like, we want to be able to give everything. I want to be able to share all my technique and strategy and help all these guys along their journey. But there's also, a business side of it. Like, I can't go into debt traveling around the world to sleep on somebody's, hotel couch, begging for meal tickets. I can't tell you, Mike, and I know you've been there too, but how many times you come out of pocket.
Absolutely.
Even at the UFC level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where, it's like, okay, if we get on a good streak and he gets that next contract, now it's at a point where the percentage would be worth the time. Yeah. So it's always an investment in the guys. And then you take a step back from the business and it's like, I have to be here because I love it. If I let the money become the focus, I won't have the right efforts and energy and intentions into this. And then if I keep all those things pure, the money and all that stuff will come. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult. And just like every coach in this game, I've been burned like by big name fighters on big name purses that that you wouldn't think that there would be an issue on. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, so I get how much for this camp, if anything at all? And I also don't want to be the guy that's trying to hustle, X amount of dollars per pad session either.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of coaches do that because that's the guarantee. Like, you don't know if the fight will come, if how long a camp will be, if there will be injuries, if there's so many variables that can happen down the road. So I see a lot of guys, it's like, I don't want to worry about a percentage. If I'm in the corner, cool. If not, cool. I just want to flat rate every workout. Yeah. That's never really been my approach either. I don't know if I'm the best businessman in this game, but I do try to be a high-level professional and carry myself well and represent our team and our fighters to the best of my capacity. But yeah, I'll tell you what, there's definitely been many conversations with my wife where she's like, wait, what are you paying for? How much did you spend? It's just part of the game.
Yeah, it is. And it gets frustrating that the one to get mad at, not you, but in general, is the athlete. Because the athlete is the one that needs to understand that they need to spread. And I speak about this. I spoke about it on Ariel's show, and I got a lot of shit, but nobody refuted the facts. I said it makes no sense for a manager to make 20% of the purse in perpetuity, and the coaches to typically split 10% or so, which is about the average. Now, if you're an athlete making $100,000, you are a rare, specimen inside the UFC when you look at the total numbers, right? Very small percentage. $10,000, let's say 10% of that purse to split amongst 4 coaches, right, is what, $2,500 a coach, maybe pre-taxes, pre-out-of-pocket, pre-everything else. You're working with this kid for, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. They fought once, maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times, leaving your job, leaving your world, leaving your family for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever that might be throughout the year. That breaks down in many ways. And then the amount of time that goes into it, it breaks down to less than a livable wage. Truly, like it's not moving anyone forward. And that's the best case scenario. That's an athlete making $100,000. Most are making 15 to 30.
Yeah.
Now you got 4 coaches splitting $3,000. They can maybe take their wife out to a fancy dinner and some dancing at the end of that training camp to say, baby, thank you for letting me do this. I barely can afford to buy you dinner. That's the reality of it. And then they're swinging hammers. They're twisting wrenches. They're putting out fires. They're doing selling cars, all this other stuff to provide for their family. So they're working a full-time plus job so they can donate full-time plus time, full-time, plus time and passion into the sport. And again, I do point back to the athletes that I started talking about the managers. There needs to be more of an equitable split there, where the managers, in my mind, 5 to 10%, maybe they sign the big contract, they get a little bit of bonus if they have, certain levers on the contract that exceed previous performance. Easy, right? Merit-based. Managers are probably not happy hearing this talked about. But the coaches certainly deserve a more equitable share so they can be more full-time, more invested coaches, right? You want higher level coaches with no restrictions, no stresses, just focused on the athlete. Team Takedown had a pretty good concept to a degree, right? Full-time coaches on salary, like lots of things were taken care of. Lots of things were wrong. That's a whole nother story. But at the very least, they were able to have a high level of success because they had so much dedicated time. Coaches weren't worried about money and healthcare and living expenses and the other thing. So, just kind of looking at the restructure. So every time an athlete complains about their pay versus the organization, I always think about the coaches feeling the same way against the athlete, not in a negative way, but just in the like, man, you think you're starving. We're fucking, homeless. That's the difference.
And I will say too, kind of regardless of the dollar value, right, that the percentage breaks down to, when I see the fighters that, are so genuinely appreciative of my time and they put forth, not just like the percentage, but make sure everything on fight week is covered, or, showing the respect of the coaches and the team. That goes extra far. as well, because I've definitely been on the flip side of that where, you know, and I'm a grown man, Mike. I'm not going to ask anybody to buy me breakfast or lunch or pay for my bag like that. But, you know, when that respect is shown, I will multiply it 100 times back to them. And it's good to feel genuinely appreciated. And, you know, when those kids are making 10 and 10 or 15 and 15 and they give you that full percentage, it's hard on them too.
Yeah. I love that.
But you know, that's the way to do it.
And that's the kid you want to work with. You don't mind breaking even on someone like that, right?
Exactly. You know that they truly value your time.
Yep.
I think that's what it comes down to too. I've had many a great fighter I've worked with, and for whatever reason, I maybe didn't feel like my time was valued. It's like, hey man, there's 100 other guys that want my job that are willing to step up, and maybe you can go find one of those guys, you know?
I love that conversation, by the way. Right? Yeah. It's not you. It's me. It's me.
Yeah. I'm good.
I'm good. You know, it's timing wasn't right. Right on, man. So big things coming up. You know, Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. I was a little surprised by the call out just because I wasn't thinking strategically like that. But when I heard it, this is a good fight for you guys. Scary fight, I'm sure. You know, it's not a walkthrough, but this is a legacy fight.
It absolutely could be. You know, we'll see if it all pans out, but it's definitely something we're preparing for. I spent a lot of time with Jon just last night, and we spoke a lot about it. I like the competitiveness of Jon. You know, I was just watching like the Jordan Last Dance documentary, and there's so many things in their mindset just about the hunger, the competition, pushing themselves, pushing others that I see in Jon. And you know, he's achieved so much at light heavyweight. The talk of moving up to heavyweight has been there for a long time. With Stipe and DC kind of in this, you know, it's a bit of a holdout, and there's a bunch of different factors to it. And I want both guys to be healthy for their, you know, finishing up the trilogy, and I want the timing to be right, obviously. But man, the world keeps moving as well. And Ngannou's been on a tear, and everybody seems afraid of him. Nobody's calling him out. And then here comes Johnny Bones, the greatest of all time. And so what makes him the greatest, like, he's always looking for these challenges. And he has fought bad men before that were amazing at heavyweight. I mean, DC's a perfect example. John's ready for all challenges. He really is. And he is so smart. His defense is so sound. Obviously, with a guy like Francis, you can't make any mistakes, but I think that's the field that Jon wants to play on.
Man, it's a scary fight in a good way that I see it from the outside perspective, of course. And I'm on the record, Jon's the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. I don't think there's any question in the history of time. I put Jon Jones, considering what he's done to the high level of opposition he's done it against. People forget Jon's resume. They dissect 1 minute of 125-minute fight to try and find a flaw, not looking at his body of work, which is incredible. There's none greater in my mind. We might go back to the samurai days and talk about high level competition victories, right? Anyway, so Jon's up at that level. And I've worked with high-level athletes. You know, Chael Sonnen, one of the greatest natural athletes I've ever worked with. Ronda Rousey, absolutely spectacular. Quentin Rampage Jackson in his prime, without training, had Jon Jones-esque potential, right? But didn't quite, you know, pull it all the way out, which is very rare that there is a Tom Brady, Jon Jones, Michael Jordan, you know, in the room in one career ever, right? You know, who knows? Probably Ronda might be the closest to that during her time in her run until life shifted focus and whatnot. But that fight, I think great athletes need great opponents, and Jon's run out at light heavyweight. There's always tough fights. No disrespect to anyone there.
No disrespect.
And Ngannou, a guy like that that's the Godzilla to beat. though I think, man, we just see John grow. So I'm speaking as a fan right now, completely. $75 Dana White, take my cash. I hope John makes 10 million. I hope Ngannou makes 5 million. They'll probably pay Ngannou 500,000 with a promise of the next contract. And John, hopefully he gets the 10 million because he deserves it. But anyway, I'm paying for that fight. Right, I'm paying for that fight. John versus Reyes. It's a Jon Jones fight, right? I'll pay for that once again, but maybe not an extra 400,000 people. I'm just negotiating for.
Well, like what gets you out of bed as a competitor? I think some of these, I think Smith and Santos and Reyes, they all got John going, but it had a lot more to do with his own legacy, with breaking the record of championship victories. There was a lot of other motivating factors, not just the man in front of you. I think Ngannou is that guy where who cares about anything else? You have this monster in front of you that you need to prepare for, and that's what's going to make you study hard. That's what's going to make you put in the extra road work and that extra round of mitts and that extra sit-up and that much more discipline with the diet. All of those things are going to come into play when it is that heavy on your mind. And, John even said in his career that the guys that Rampage was one of them that, Rampage was so ferocious, had such amazing power, had so many highlights. That was the guy that kept you up at night preparing for that fight. And it made us that much sharper. And then, John went out there and put on a masterpiece and was the first guy to finish Rampage in the UFC. Francis brings a lot of those same characteristics and qualities and not that Reyes and Smith and Santos and those guys didn't, but the Gustafsson rematch, the DC rematch, Francis, those are the ones that, man, I will give every ounce of blood and sweat I have for that victory.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you bring up Ngannou and Rampage. Put you on the spot. Who's better at the time that they're fighting John? Rampage at that point or Ngannou at this point?
Maybe Ngannou at this point. Because his losses have kind of, he's been grinded out, but he hasn't been finished. Rampage, we had seen, slept a few times by Vanderlei, and you knew he was human. Yep. Even though he'd go on the streak and he had so many X factor, like Rampage is the more well-rounded mixed martial artist for sure. He had great kicks, big slams, great ground and pound. Ngannou just has these dynamite hands. We've seen him gas, we've seen him get tired with Derek Lewis and with Stipe, but we haven't seen him really beat. And so I think right now, at this point in their careers, Francis is the more intimidating opponent.
Yeah, that's actually a great analysis. I was thinking about it until you explained it. That's perfect. I agree completely. Now we're going to finish up here. I know you got to get going soon. What's your favorite lunch?
Man, there is a tiny. I live in New Mexico, so I've always been guilty to the New Mexican cuisine. Man, I love red chili, beef, brisket, enchiladas. If I'm gonna.
That sounds awesome. And what else? Coffee. Where do you get a good cup of coffee in New Mexico?
Great, man. This is. We don't have clubs here. There's not a big nightlife. There's not a big scene, but we have great microbrew beer and we have great third wave coffee spots. And shout out to Carlos Condit. He has his own spot, 100 Hands. So I definitely like 100 Hands Nitro Cold Brew. There are spots every part of this town. Right now, I just have a cup from Rwanda. I got some fresh beans from Rwanda.
Wow. All right.
They're very fruity. So yeah, I love my coffee, Mike.
I know. I remember last time when I was out there with Condit, actually, coffee was a common theme, and it's nothing happens without coffee with Carlos Condit, right. For sure. Coffee's the constant theme, which is a great thing.
And fighters that are family. Keith Jardine has a great coffee company here as well. So it's good to have great friends with amazing coffee. Yeah, you're right. Happens about it.
Yeah, man. It's funny because Albuquerque, you guys are a big coffee hub, right? To talk about it, right?
There's nothing to do, man. It's good to just break bread or have a cup of coffee with some friends. It's things are a little slower here in the Southwest. It's
Gotcha.
not all the bustle of the East Coast.
Oh man, yeah, I hear you. Well, I still make it a point to go to our little, mom and pops. That's my favorite. One of my favorite things to do in the world is to just walk into a cafe completely alone, order double espresso, sit in the corner, and just quietly sit with my thoughts and my coffee, my espresso. Right. I love to smell, especially if they roast on site, like just to smell the beans and to be in that culture, that atmosphere. And I will turn that into a whole day though. Right. For sure.
Absolutely.
Buddy shows up, you get the table outside in the sunshine, cause it's the sun just turned the right way. That's heaven to me right there.
Man, and that's where a lot of good relationships are built and conversations are had and ideas are sparked. Absolutely. I always try to make time for those things.
Right on. Well, brother, I really appreciate you hopping on and giving us the time. Again, you are one of my favorite coaches inside the sport, just because of you as a person. Your skill set is awesome. There's lots of guys with high skill set that don't have your moral character and just how easy, whether, we work together, we work against each other, or we're just working the same card.
Yep.
It's always a pleasure to see your face simply in passing or stopping and having a coffee. And I'm glad we could get the chance to chat here and just share a little bit of you with our audience. I know they're super appreciative, and man, it's good to see you.
Likewise, Coach. Stay well, stay strong, and I look forward to having a double espresso with you soon.
Exactly, brother. Me too. All right, Brandon, be good, Coach. Talk soon.
Thanks, bud. Bye.
There we go. Mr. Brandon Gibson, Six Gun Gibson. Everybody follow Six Gun Gibson on Instagram. Just type in Brandon Gibson. You will find all of his stuff. And again, top coach, top guy, top person, top dad, top husband, top friend. There's a group of people inside the world of mixed martial arts and really any industry, right? That just, they stand above. They stand above because of the je ne sais quoi. They have that special X factor, regardless of their ability to count beans or craft widgets, whatever the skill set needed might be. That's fine. But, there's a good number of people who have specific skill sets at high proficiencies. To have that skill set, to have that command of the work, but also to be a good person, to be affable and friendly and empathetic and jovial and even tempered, to be passionate about a topic in a non-invasive way. And that's Coach Gibson. So I'm super happy that he was able to be here, and happy that you guys were able to be here and watch. So who do you want to hear next? Do you want to hear a new coach, a new interview? Leave them in the comments below. We are running this interview series now. We have lots of great coaches coming up. Who do we have coming up? We have Sean Stevenson, #1 best-selling author of the Model Health Show. Sean Stevenson is coming on. Mark Montoya, one of the top mixed martial arts coaches at the UFC level. Multiple, high-level UFC athletes, James Krause, Anthony Smith, and a list of others training with Coach Mark Montoya. Who else do we have? We have Tony Ricci coming on. Tony Ricci is one of the most, academically credited sports scientists, professors on the planet. He's going to be getting in and speaking with us about a really interesting topic, actually. So, and that gives you guys some good takeaways. CL, actually, END. Sorry here. So what I'm going to do, Cal, there we go. I'm going to actually go through some of, we actually have, that's right, Phil Daru Strong is going to be coming on. There we go. There's my list. We have Stan Efferding, the world's strongest professional bodybuilder. Stan Efferding of the Vertical Diet will be coming on. We have Tony Ricci, of course, who's just absolutely incredible. Juan Leja, one of the head coaches over at the On It Academy. Juan Leja is going to be on. Ben Coomer of UK fame, top 10 health and fitness podcaster, UK fitness coach. Sean Stevenson, of course, is coming on. That's just a few of the upcoming interviews that we have. Dwayne Bang Ludwig, of course. I'll reach out to Bang and hopefully get him on the show, see what he's got going on. Who else do you guys want to talk to? That's the question right now. Who do you want to talk to? Leave that in the comments below and give me some questions. Who do you want to talk to? Give me some questions. Why do I want to talk to him? Nick Curson, actually, we're looking to get Nick on the show. Lauren Landau, we're looking to get Lauren on the show. Who else? Chris Bell of Bigger, Stronger, Faster, the Ibogaine conversation, looking to get Chris on the show. Elliot Holst of Strength Camp, if you know Elliot, trying to get him on the show. Louis Marco, where you at, Louis? Trying to get the Louis on the show, the LUI. So we got lots. We got a big list of guests coming up. We're going to be trying to drop these interviews every or two interviews a week on the YouTube channel, and of course the audio podcast. You guys are getting filled up all the time with any interviews, with rants, with actionable take home single topic conversations. The audio Mike Dolce show, you guys should all be following and subscribed to on iTunes and whatnot. Don't quite have the Spotify deal at the moment, but I hear that's coming close. If you subscribe, if you click thumbs up, if you leave comments below, that certainly helps the channel out. I appreciate you. And until next time, boom.